Did anyone else get the impression while watching these episodes that Star Wars Andor was doing Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon better than Rebel Moon was doing Rebel Moon, and even Rebel Moon was just doing Star Wars and Seven Samurai? Because I just got that impression. It was really kind of funny to me. Hello, interwebs. I hope you are all doing well, because I am literally buzzing because I lied to all of you. I watched both of the final 2 episodes of this first chunk of 3 episodes that we got of Star Wars Andor the night they released. I'm probably going to release this the day after because I already released my review of episode 1, but I said I was going to temper myself and wait a little bit, but no, I got so excited and just needed to watch them all. They were so good. I don't know, maybe, I know that this is a common thing in my circles because, you know, I work in film, I do directing and things like that. And I'm curious if other people feel this. I'm sure they feel it in their own fields. But do you ever just watch a piece of art or something that you are inspired by to do the job that you do, and you just want to go like, oh man, I want to go out and make things. I want to do this. I want to make stuff like this. Like that's what I get from episodes like this. These are by no means are reaching the heights of like the Narkina 5 prison arc that we got in Andor season 1. But like watching these episodes, just like, this is something made when you have like master craft people working on every little bit of this, from the cinematography to the acting to the directing to the writing to production design. It all just is meticulous and so well done, and it especially when it's something like gets you pumped like anti-fascism media. Like I'm just like, yes, I'm here, my body is ready and I'm excited. So yeah, so much to talk about with these 2 episodes, but like I am radiating just literally having finished it in the other room and walked down here to talk about all of this. So let's fucking go, y'all. All right, let me start off with, I think, probably the weakest element of these 2 episodes, which is everything to do with Cassian on the forest planet in the episode. I will say, I'm just going to go full spoilers here, so just be aware of that right now. There is that reveal at the end of the episode when Cassian takes off that it is Yavin, that this is the Yavin 4 moon that A New Hope will take place on, which feels a little bit fan servicey. It was one of those cool moments of like, oh yeah, that's cute, but usually Andor eschews those like, oh yeah, it's cute Easter egg moments, especially when you get visuals that heavily like when the only thing the visual is there for necessarily is the, oh yeah, that's a cute Easter egg moment. That being said, the show could obviously be building towards like, oh, we're coming back to Yavin at some point, because obviously we're building to Rogue One and A New Hope and all of that jazz. So it's setting that up, but it was a little Easter eggy for me in the way that Star Wars Andor shoes. I don't necessarily mind. It's just one of those like, that's a slightly different tact for Andor. But that being said, it could be something that they're building up towards. That being said, moving back to the actual plot of it all, I didn't mind the 2 factions sort of this sort of resistance cell group that have sort of fractured because of the stress of the moment going against each other. However, it did leave Cassian mostly, especially coming right off the premiere, being in a passive situation for the most part, sitting it out, which is a little bit weird considering it's like the first episode back from a season. I don't mind the protagonist not always being the one sort of pushing the story forward, and certainly this is a show that is much of an ensemble, never just Cassian. In fact, in some ways, Cassian was a very passive character throughout season 1 because it was his arc towards wanting to join the rebellion, but here he's now an active part of it, and so it was a little bit one of those like, oh man, I wish it hadn't been this early where he's sort of been passive. That being said, the beats were all fairly interesting enough. They weren't like amazing, but them like trying to turn the TIE fighter to try and kill all of the group that Cassian's a prisoner of. And I love them pointing out like, what's the plan? You're going to kill the only pilot who can get us out of here. Is that your plan now? Because you're just going to do this little petty fighting. And eventually I like that they start to try to work things out through like just a game that they play. But that's when Cassian can get away. It all feels into like the immaturity and the inorganization of these folks. Like certainly they are a resistance cell. They're fighting back, but there's a certain level of just like immaturity in their organization that leads to things like this, and basically shows the difference between a group like this and the rebellion. It actually is much more organized in some senses, but shows how, as it filters down, there are going to be groups and cells that sort of form the rebellion in terms of just the different groups, all that they don't all function cohesively. And it does take a large step to try to unify them. I think that that's kind of what this is ultimately trying to show, that like the rebellion is very fractious in some ways. And so we're going to get to the more unified front that the rebellion of Rogue One and into the original trilogy gets to, that I think is kind of interesting on that front. But I did ultimately think it was a little bit just of the weaker storylines, because you can kind of see where the beat's going to go, and Cassian himself is generally passive in it until he escapes. But let's jump over to a storyline that is much more fun, which is Deedra and Syril Karn. Oh, these two little fascist people deserve each other. Just absolute shit human beings. But so much to say with these two. First off, it's interesting that they are actually together. We kind of got that sign that they were going to end up together at the end of season 1, but it is interesting to me that there does seem to be an earnestness in like them being together, and I'm curious to see why, because it really felt like Deidre just fucking hated Syril, and I could see her being in a relationship to use him, and certainly that's not a very loving relationship the two have. They're not exactly loving people. They're little fascist people, but there is a sense of like they are together for like earnest reasons rather than it being convenience on maybe Deirdre's part, but we don't necessarily know for sure. So I am curious to see what that relationship is building towards, or what the foundation of it is. But that being said, they do fit together so terribly well. I loved the scene where Syril goes into his job, the job that he had at the end of season 1, or in the middle of season 1, and he's just like, yeah, I worked real hard and I worked my way up. There's a future here. And it's like, man, this little shit boy. This little shit boy he's the true believer. He just does everything 110% to the annoyance of everyone else, because he's a true believer in this fascist project, and yet he's not incompetent. He's annoyingly competent at times. But he's just that little incel fascist boy who's just that true believer in like that very sort of neo-Nazi kind of way. It's just God, I hate him, but he's so fascinating to watch. And Deirdre's just the same. I like, again, Deirdre's more competent and knows what she's doing, but she's not a person, right? Like, she's not a human being. She functions for the fascist state, and that's really all she is. And you can see how she doesn't want to do the Gorman task. She has that quick scene because she wants to prove that she wants to prove herself with the Axis stuff to find Cassian, but she failed miserably at that, and this is a chance for her to like earn her place, even though she's sort of dead set on her mission with Axis. So curious to see her shifting over to the Gorman Project, as we'll get to that. Horrible, fucking terrible stuff in the episodes coming, I'm sure. But then the best part was them getting ready for dinner. And it's for, I was wondering who it was for. I was like, oh, is it like a higher up that they're trying to woo or whatever, something like that, to show off for. But no, it's just Cyril's mom. It's just Cyril's mom, and this is the mother from hell. And it's so funny. It's so awful and so funny. And it's like the same thing from season 1, where you see, it pays it off really well, where you see how Syril got to be the way he was, because the way his mother just needles him and makes him feel just unimportant and emasculates him and pushes him, and he can't say anything. So and I love like them trying to just have a nice dinner with her and put on a face, and Cyril's just like, every little microaggression this mother says, I'm trying, but God, she just makes me so angry. And I loved it, but it's never overplayed. It's never like he's like getting angry, but I just love him hitting the cakes and everything, and just her being like, oh yeah, he's with the cake, like coming back for the cakes, like you thought I was just playing at being a police officer. He just always emasculated. And I also wanted to point out too, like her saying that their apartment, Deirdre's apartment, is a palace. And in many ways it is, in the sense that like it's on Coruscant, they are in an upper level. Like you can see the sky. Like if you're living on Coruscant and you can see the sky, that means you're doing well. Even though their apartment is like nothing. It's like 4 rooms and they're empty and bare because they're little fascist people and they don't have any taste or interest or personality. It's just bare, blank, white walls. And yet it's a palace to her. And I think that that's just fascinating. And the weird like suburban American bullshit kind of vibe to all of it, the emptiness of it. that's on display. And I love Deidre kind of blackmailing the mothers, like, it will be inversely proportional. Your visiting will be inversely proportional to how much anxiety you cause him. I'm like, oof. It just, the weird, like, fascist dealing with domestic problem bullshit was fun. It was just kind of a fun, like, everyone here is horrible people, and it's just fascinating to see them all be kind of horrible to each other in just very intricate ways. I am curious to see ultimately, though, where it is going plot-wise, if there is any plot to it, but it was an enjoyable watch. Not necessarily saying it all needs to build up to something grander, but it was enjoyable to view. So that gave us some of the comedic relief throughout the episode. Jumping over to kind of an interesting stuff was everything with Mon Mothma on Chrysilla. I forget exactly their planet, but I really loved the intricacies of all of the marriage ceremony, all the little steps that we get over the weekend. Perrin giving that speech, and you can see that there's an earnestness in his speech of like, yeah, there are joys in these moments. They are fleeting, they are small, and you can see the pain kind of in those words of like, yeah, his and Mon Mothma is not really a full of love marriage. It was an arranged marriage as well, and certainly it that has caused them many problems. That was not a marriage based on like mutual attraction and love, but there has been moments of earnest kindness and joy between the two of them. Small and fleeting, but there. And you see that in Perrin and how pained that makes Mon Mothma feel, that she tries to impart to her daughter, being like, you don't have to go through with this. And you see that pain of like, I wish my mother had told me this, and you don't have to go through with this. And I love, you can see the love that Mon has for her daughter to be like, I know you might feel pressured to do this, but you do not have to. And I will stand by you, and I'm going to let you know that, and know that it will be seen as a brave thing in the end to have done, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. And that's just such a loving thing for her to say, and which is why it's so gutting when the daughter just says, I wish you were drunk, and doesn't recognize that moment for what it is, and just shoves her mother away. And it's so devastating. And there is also an interesting element of it too, of like there's an implicit sexism in some of the ceremony. It's not overt, but like the sense that Perrin's the one to sort of give the knife to the other, to the guy marrying his daughter, and basically the knife is sort of a symbolic of his daughter that he's giving away. Not that that's unique to anything. There's many cultures that have that sort of implicit sexism in a lot of their marriage ceremonies and other ones, but it's just an interesting one nonetheless. Also interesting too, the sort of Luthen have found this sort of taken artifact from this society, which was all very interesting as well. Just like, again, that's what colonialism, imperialism does. And interesting that was done hundreds of years ago before the Empire. But just like stealing artifacts and finally bringing them back to their place of origin is something that we see going on today with the British Empire having done that to many countries, that in other, not just the British Empire, but many others. But British Empire, as you think of the British Museum being the most obvious example of that, taking places from, India, Greece, all that as well. So there's that element of it. But what is more interesting, obviously, going on here is the sort of political machinations of Tay trying to extort Mon Mothma, and also being a liability because he's drunk. He's going to cause problems. He's going to want to try and get into more criminal business, which will cause liability for the rebellion. And so he needs to be taken out. And I number one, I love how unaddressed, like how the characters sort of circle around saying that. Like I even had to rewind. There's a moment where Tay is saying what he's not, like basically not saying what he's trying to say, that he wants to get money. He wants, Mon Mothma to pay him more money. And you see that Mon Mothma gets it. And I didn't even get it at first because it didn't even ask overtly. He just sort of says like, yeah, everyone else is here is kind of, getting what they want. And I love that he kind of circles around it. Mon instantly knows what he's asking and knows that it's gonna be a problem, and yet she can't really reckon with it. She keeps trying to tell Luthen, like, we'll find a number. I'll make it work. We'll deal with it. And Luthen says, like, quite frankly and truthfully, like, this will make you a liability. Like, this is a liability. It will put you in danger. That's the number. The amount doesn't necessarily matter. It's the fact that you will be in danger because of this. And that's too much of a risk for us right now. And it needs to be done. And I love Mon Mothma saying, like, I don't know what you're saying, and him saying, well, good, like, that's so nice for you. Because she is kind of insulated from that stuff because of, you know, her position. And now it's coming home to roost. Like, she's going to have to, like, her friend has to die. And you see her dealing with that, but then she get pulled into the dance sequence, which, by the way, I love that the music is the Nymos music that we heard way back on Miami Planet way back in season 1 and throughout a couple other places in season 1. I think, like, the brothel that Cassian visits in the premiere episode also had the music playing. So just I love that being, like, now it's a dance remix version. That's very fun. But like her just like dancing depressingly, in so many cuts to that shot of her just dancing depressed and sad, kind of accepting what's going on. And then we get Vel seeing Sintra. I think it's Sintra is her girlfriend. You know, I love that being a small mini arc for Vel in this, where she doesn't get to see her girlfriend. She's like, if she wanted to see me, she would. And then when she sees her taking Tay away, she knows she's there to kill Tay. And again, it sort of showcases like Vel when she goes and sits off sadly looking at that. She too, kind of like Mon Mothma, doesn't necessarily recognize the true things that you have to do this rebellion, because they have been somewhat insulated from it by being high society people. Like, yes, they are doing the right thing. They are trying to fight the Empire, but because of just their class, they haven't had to necessarily get their hands as dirty as they've had to. And certainly Vel has, you know, gone out and played the revolutionary when she did the Aldani heist, and certainly that was useful and helpful, but you could tell that even there, she wasn't necessarily getting her hands as dirty. It was like she was killing people, but it was soldiers, you know, not necessarily the nitty-gritty of killing friends who are going to be liabilities to you. So just interesting for both of them, on both of them having to deal with that, and such an interesting political intrigue situation going on there, and just that music sequence, just the sadness of it. So like all of that was just so intricate and so well handled. Love that. But I think the true pièce de résistance of these 2 episodes, of these 3 episodes, is everything to do with our Ferrix crew on, I didn't catch the planet, but this harvest planet, the Rebel Moon looking planet, I will say. All of that was so wonderfully done. The tension of it building this whole time. The storyline of like the smug ass fucking lieutenant coming in with to Bix and trying to hit on her. Like, it's that stuff I've seen before, but it is executed so well here, and just the tension of it, like the music hitting those beats, like it gets sinister. Like, she's trying to, like, my husband's here, and he's like, oh, does your husband worry about you? Like the darkness of that. My one concern going into it was that, Cassian was going to arrive right at the right time to save Bix from being sexually assaulted. I can't say the other word, as I'll certainly get demonetized here. But I was worried that it was going to be like, Cassian saved her. And I like that, no, she does beat him to death, essentially. So it was a rough watch, especially for someone who's been through situations like that. Obviously not in the same way, but stuff like that. And, you know, it was nice to see her get to do that. So I appreciated that. And I liked seeing this guy who's sort of hiding the Ferrix crew, doing his best to try and get them, like, work orders. And you can see this going on. I love his moment where he says, you know, tell the boss of Cassian's boss that what's happening here. They need to know. And Brasso telling him, like, this is happening everywhere. It's not unique here. And they're doing what they can. But, like, yeah, this happens everywhere. And that's the sadness of it. It's like, yeah, you see the desire to fight back against the Empire. The rebellion can't get to everybody, so sometimes you have to do it yourself. Which is the sad truth of it, which we don't get to really here. But like, it's just the element of what's the truth of, you know, rebellion's got to focus on what it can focus on, and this is happening everywhere. And you know, I love all the little intricacies and dynamics here with Brasso when they do get discovered. Him running at the guy who was hiding him to sort of cover for him. The small moments of tension of, like, you know, I think it's Will is his name. He left his bike out in front of the main area. Like, he's just inattention to detail. Like, we didn't clean the tools. He just has this inattention to detail that lets this happen. It's not just his fault. There's other compounding factors and things that happened, but certainly it's just an inattention to detail that causes problems, that adds to their problems, I guess I should put it that way. and Cassian coming in and saving at the right moment, blowing things up, blowing up the grain silo, which, what a horrible way to die. Just dying from grain silo stuff. Always horrified by that from ever since I watched it in Barry. And also, it was cool to see Cassian using the TIE fighter and he having the little like HUD display, which I found like very much remind me of X-Wing, like the X-Wing games. Just fun seeing that HUD come up. I also should say I love the tactile nature of Cassian trying to figure out the TIE fighter. He's like, I've been upside down for 2 days, which is just funny. And him like plugging in like stuff and it causing the TIE fighter to shoot off, and just the tactile nature of the use of this thing was fun to see. But yeah, it does all lead to the end where we have Brasso dying, which hit me harder than I thought. You know, Brasso's been a character since the first episode of the series, but he's not one I've thought too much about. But like, there's been sweet moments with him, especially like this episode too, with like him with B2 Emo, which is the sweetest thing. Like, B2 Emo, I love you so much. I loved him seeing him play with the kids, and I just love Brasso just treating B2 Emo with such care and being like, we'll be back. And the person who's sort of taking care of B2 Emo is like, yeah, we'll have such fun that we won't even remember them. We won't be thinking about them. And it's just so sweet and sad and melancholy. And I just really love how they treat B2 Emo, and I love how Brasso treated B2 Emo. So his death it hit me harder than I expected it to. And so when they all fly away at the end, Cassian, Bix, and Will, I think is his name, flying away, I just am sitting there being like, oh man, that really hits hard. It really hits hard. And it's just a strong end to a 3-part episode. Like, again, these 3 episodes didn't necessarily hit the heights of Narkina 5, but you can just tell that this show is working on such clockwork, and not even a way that feels like, every single piece is like filling up to this big grand thing. It does do that. But like, even stuff like the sequences with Deedra and Syril, which feel somewhat ancillary to the story going on in this episode, like they're just so well crafted and done and handled and build and just like give some comedic relief, but also reveal character. Like it's a show that is, you can see the meticulousness and the craft on display. And it just lands so well till we get to that end sequence with the cutting between Naimo and everything like that. It just lands so well. And even if I have criticisms here and there, like some of the stuff on Yavin in episode 2, it's like you can still tell even the stuff that doesn't hit as hard still is the work of people paying attention to a lot of detail, as opposed to some shows where you're just like, they stuck it on a green screen and they kind of filmed and the camera just is moving willy-nilly. Like, no, there was intention and choices behind every shot, and it's just, you forget how bad you've been eating until you get like a nice meal. You're like, oh yeah, this is what good food feels like. So yeah, this is great, and I love it, and I love Star Wars Andor to death. Excited to see what we're gonna get in the next batch of 3 episodes, but man, so freaking good. And I know it's going to gut my heart, too, in the next few episodes. It's probably going to get even worse than what it hits me with here. Anyways, that's my thoughts on these 2 episodes of Star Wars Andor. What did you think? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. But beyond all of that, my friends, I hope you live long and prosper.